The following is a presentation of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Hello and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I am your host, Peter Martin of Gosselin and Martin Associates, and as always, thank you for clicking on this video. Today's episode, I have two guests who are joining me, and I would ask them to introduce themselves in just a minute. But what we're going to be doing is looking at the 2023 Healthcare Facilities Management Survey that we sent out in September. The results of that survey have been published. You can find them. I will link to them at the end of this video. I will link to that video. So if you want to see the results and see what people said, you can see those. This particular episode, we're diving a little bit deeper into some of the answers, and these two gentlemen who have kindly joined me were also kind enough to be we had more than 160 people who responded, so I was really happy by that. So I thank anybody who did respond, and I thank my two guests who said that they would be open and willing to jumping on the Healthcare Facilities Network to talk a little bit about some of their answers. So why don't we go to my left on the screen? And John, I would ask you to introduce yourself first. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Hey, thanks, Pete. I'm John Puckett. I'm UW Health's Business Operations Manager for the Maintenance and Engineering section. I've worn a lot of hats in this category, and I'm happy to be here and share my experiences.
Well, thank you, John. And John, I never know when people watch these things because they live forever. They're on YouTube, so people could click in 2-3 years. But I would just say that being a Marquette graduate, Madison, Wisconsin was not my favorite place on Saturday when we rolled into Madison and just an ugly, brutal basketball game. But anyways, I don't hold that against you. We've known each other for many years, and so even though it was a bad Saturday, I am happy that John has joined me. And listen, it's a great organization. I mean, you're, the health system. So thank you, John.
Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Vance.
Hi again, Peter. My name is Vance Vinson, and I am the Director of Facilities at Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. And we could make this a college basketball podcast or video, but we won't. Dayton, Ohio. Been there a couple of times when Marquette used to play Dayton, but that's it for college basketball. We are talking about 2023 Healthcare Facility Management Survey. Let me just ask first, and John, I'd like to talk a little bit about the answer that you gave relative to issues and technology and the use of technology. So I'd like to start there, but just firstly, both of you guys, I mean, we've been talking for years, and I'm glad you joined because you both are very articulate and yet really have a very good sense of the industry and your role in it. I would just ask first, if you don't mind, how would you describe the environment in 2023 that you're working? You've seen lots of changes, and that's why I want to start with the technology, because there's a lot of changes there. But how would you describe the state of healthcare facilities management in 2023? Anybody want to take that one first?
Well, I'll take a shot at it, Pete. From my perspective, and between obviously working in healthcare and seeing what I see on the news, Medicare and Medicaid, or the federal government, has reduced their reimbursement to the point where, and we're not a HCA or a tenant healthcare, we're not that huge, but we're 5 hospitals and about 1,700 beds. So we're not small either.
Right.
But they've cut the reimbursement to the point where it's really hard to keep above water. So that's my perspective of what has happened this last year, and I think will continue to happen.
Yeah. And what you've described, Vance, I think in some regards, it goes perhaps maybe against the public perception of the healthcare environment. Now, we can always point to CEOs who are making, we can point to certain people who are making lots of money. But where patient care hits the road in your buildings, your facilities, and what you do, that's where it's really difficult.
Yeah, it is. And part of it, I think, is you don't see any people that employees and I don't know why visitors would see it, nor patients. But the people that hold the purse strings don't see the mechanical rooms, don't see the size of some of the equipment that we have, and don't realize what it takes resource-wise, keep the lights on and the heat or air conditioning on and the water running.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Peter Martin. If you or your organization is interested in advertising or partnering with the Healthcare Facilities Network, including sponsoring content, then please email me using the barcode in the lower right of your screen. From the trades level to the vice president level, from planning, design, construction, project management, compliance, safety, and security, the Healthcare Facilities Network reaches FM people where FM people are. Yeah, I did. This is just a plug for our Healthcare Facilities Network. And John, I'll go to you next. We did an episode it's called, we talked to a CFO. So it's Robert Hacker. He's the director of facilities management, along with the CFO of the hospital. And it's really an interesting conversation. This particular CFO, Jim Corwin, was very much attuned with the mechanical systems, the elevators, the air handlers, the boilers. So he knew, but you don't always find that. And that can be really difficult when I might not be able to cut you a check for $1 million, but at least I know the risk that you're dealing with, and I can appreciate it. And I don't have a check for $1 million to cut you anyways, Vance. So, John, how about you?
Yeah, the reimbursement is, what it is. I think our executive suite has a lot of competition for the resources. My BP used to say there's a finite amount of resources and infinite amount of need. So it's making the case for it sometimes. And I've always, not always, but as I've gotten better at this, I've learned to make a cost benefit analysis and return on investment, so it speaks to what the CFO sees. And I recently saw, and I'm interested in participating in a presentation about the risk of inaction and how the lack of an investment in your facilities reduces their net value, their current net value. So it is a struggle. I think it behooves us to both make a good case for it and look for every opportunity we can to get the most out of our facilities. It's a huge investment, and I try and I think sometimes we're seen like we keep going, with our hand out asking for more money, and we've got to change that approach. And our organizations have been made a huge investment, and I try and make analogies that people can relate to, like their automobile. And if you're driving a 1972 Chevy, you're going to need to put money in the engine and the transmission and those kind of things, brakes, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money to keep it going. And your options are to either build a new one or to make that investment, because you're going to need to continue the transportation. And we provide that environment for healthcare. So I think sometimes shining that light on it helps. And speaking of shining the light on it, like Vance said, they really don't see that. And one of my better capital approaches, I actually took pictures and brought them to the budget committee meeting, and that was it was quite successful. It really helped. So I think maybe utilizing some of that technology, video or pictures, it sometimes has helped me in the past leverage some of those dollars between those two approaches.
Yeah, there's nothing like putting your eyes on something or putting your hands on something, even even better at times.
Right.
So, John, let's talk technology. One of the questions on the survey was just asking about issues facing healthcare facilities management. You wrote, "We are so far behind on technology that we must make a significant investment to catch up. That was my master's thesis 12 years ago, and technology has only accelerated." What do you mean by that?
You know, I'm old enough to remember the vacuum tube, fire eye, boiler controls, and analog systems for phone and fire alarm, and then as we you know, as everything changed in our personal lives and the way we do banking. I remember getting paychecks handed out every other Friday, and so, you know, now everything's electronic. So the world has changed around us, and we've kind of adapted to it to some extent, but the level of technological expertise in our people, a lot of us have long-term people, and we value those relationships, but they didn't grow up with computers, and if they didn't have, you know, the insight or the interest in developing those skills, they're really far behind. And we're starting to hire folks that are better with computers, maybe not as good at tools. We've got to find that middle ground, and then it goes so fast. You know, we've been talking about the Internet of Things for quite some time, and in the organizations I've served, we haven't really made that connection to those diverse systems so that they could communicate and share information with each other really well. We've dabbled in it, and now we've gone beyond that to, you know, artificial intelligence and what that's going to mean to us in a variety of ways. So I think there's both making some investment in our people, making some changes in the skill sets we look for when we hire folks, and then there's going to be some things that we're not going to be able to keep up and develop. We'll need to grow our relationships with our contract partners or vendor partners who have those skills, who specialize in those areas, and I think that's the only way we're going to be successful in that.
Yeah, you said a lot there. Daunting. I
Oh.
when I said you say it a lot, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's like when you lay it out like that, that's a lot.
Yeah, we're not talking about water treatment here. We're talking about you know, not only the folks, but the systems. And maybe I said that backward. Not only the systems that we operate and maintain and spend lots of money on, but you know, the people that have to know enough about them to utilize them efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, yeah. It's you have to think about it. We talked about, Vance, you started talking kind of about funding and the lack of funding. And so, you know, that's another, so with what you've just said, you know, you're talking about funding, skill, workforce, and then kind of that seat at the table. And so that is directly connected to many of the issues that you guys are facing in healthcare facilities management today. Everybody knows it can ease your job, but at what cost? Vance, any thoughts on that?
I agree with a lot of what John says. And just as an example, as we do some infrastructure projects, I've been updating the controls to an open protocol system, so I'm not married to a controls company. Well, at the rate I'm going, my youngest son will be drawing Social Security before I get them all done. And by that time, I'm sure technology will have changed.
Yeah. Is it an issue, Vance, of time, money? Is it all of that combined? What are some of the issues that you're facing in getting it connected?
time and money,
Time and money.
or I guess I should reverse those and say money and time.
Yeah. How big of a, and John, you brought up, like, when you think about it, how big of a job is it to get everything talking to one another? And I guess I don't know how to like quantify that, because big's not a very big word. How big of a job is it? But if you had to quantify what it takes to get that done in money, time, and actual effort, what would you say to that question?
Is that for me?
Yeah, because you brought it up.
Thank yeah.
I think it would be fair to ask Vance.
Seems only fair. Yeah.
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 It could be a wag, John. It's yeah.
It will. It'll be a wag. But I know that we've done that, and I'm not sure that the task in and of itself is the biggest challenge. We at a previous hospital I served, we integrated these proximity switches so that the devices, the communications devices the nurse had, the call system at the bedside, all of these things worked together, and they were hands-free. And what we wanted to do was quickly notify the nearest caregiver that there was a need in a room. They would respond to it. Their proximity would acknowledge that call, so we reduce the time between the request and answer. And then they could also use that same device to call other help or whatever needed to happen. But it required the marriage of three systems, and we used a device we referred to as the black box. And the black box kind of tied those diverse systems together and made them work. But it came with the disclaimer that any failure on any part of that would be not the problem of the black box. And I thought that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then
like the Wizard of Oz, the black box.
In hindsight, it worked very well. But I think it wouldn't take many failures for us to have a different perspective on that. And then the other thing is when you tie multiple systems together, now you just reduced a level of security with those systems. And one of those things we don't talk about a lot heretofore, but we're starting to now is the security and the ability for somebody to like hack into our technology and turn the heat up or turn the heat off or turn the lights off or disable the generators or all of those things. And if we tie all those things together so that they work very well together, we also expose ourselves to a greater risk. So I think the bigger question might not be, how much of a lift would it be to make them all work together, but those other consequential results, like this, having the staff that knew enough about all of it to operate it, and then how would we provide the level of security that we need for that when our banks can't even often keep our information and network secure.
Yeah. Let's shift gears away from technology into the employee shortage. On the survey, 87%, 86% of respondents said that in the past year they had difficulty and or were unable to fill a role. So that's nothing that you guys probably couldn't have guessed. And what we're talking about here are more employees, different employee skill sets too, right? I mean, from the technology to the facilities. But Vince, if we can just start with you. One of the things that you wrote in the survey, you went right to pay and benefits. And many times you guys have been, you're outpaced by the trades. That's obviously not a surprise. Most trades are gonna outpace you. And on the project manager level, you could be up to $20,000 to $40,000 again beneath what those other firms are offering. How do you manage? What do you do? How do you overcome that?
Well, I'm still trying to overcome it. Over the years, the size of the facilities department has been reduced.
Vince, and I can't remember if you said this in your intro. you talked about the totality of the system, but square footage wise, how much is, Miami Valley where you are, and then total, what's the square footage you're looking at?
So Miami Valley Hospital is 4.8 million square feet.
That's a big place.
We are, all of the other hospitals in our system get to half of that.
Okay.
So, or maybe just over half of it. So, more the thoroughbred of the system.
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question, we're at 40% of, 60% of the staff that we had 15 years ago.
Really?
Well, 15 years ago, we didn't have about 700,000 square feet of that 4.8 million.
Okay.
So it just kind of compounds the shortage.
Yeah.
And my general maintenance guys, they're good. I mean, when I say they're good, they've got a skill set that matches the jobs they need to do. Where we really struggle is with the skilled trades positions. And like, for example, I think you mentioned it, the project manager position.
Mm-hmm.
We've got construction going on here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. And it takes somebody with a really good skill set
Yeah.
to keep managing all of those at once.
So your PMs, you have PMs, you have in-house PMs that work your projects?
I have an in-house project manager that manages the projects. Some of them, pretty much either my manager or I manage, and the project manager keeps the paperwork straight for us.
Oh, wow.
So, and to give you an example, at one time this year, we had 52 projects going on at once.
Wow.
And obviously they range from 100,000 to 15 million.
Yeah, but I mean, and people look at that, but I mean, you've managed projects. That $100,000 project can be just as big a pain in the neck as 15, because you're still doing, like, the process should be similar, right? You can't ignore them because it's 100K. Right. That's a lot of projects. 52.
Have to do an infection control risk assessment and safety assessment, and those in and of itself, at least in our organization, are time consuming to get. And then I've hired somebody that all her job is to do is go to each of these sites, construction sites or project sites, and make sure that the ICRA and the ILSM are being adhered to by the contractors.
Wow.
So I've got somebody that does that full time.
Jeez. Wow. And so is it a matter of finding people, paying people? What is the, or even just getting those positions approved? Is there?
So since I've been here, and we've got 60 people at the Valley in facilities.
Okay.
Since I got here, I've been
4.8 million square feet.
Right.
Sorry, didn't.
That's okay.
I just always kind of have to run it back to myself. Okay, that's pretty big scope.
Yes. I've been able to add 7 staff, and my justification, and I did an ROI on it as well, was bringing stuff that they have historically hired out to a third party.
Yeah.
We bring it in-house. So, And obviously, since I've added 7 staff over the 5 years I've been here, I've been able to demonstrate that, yes, the savings is actually there, or they wouldn't let me continue
Right.
the things I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, I've talked to some folks too. Those third party that people have, whether they're plumbers or owners, project managers, or whatever they happen to be, they're having issues too. I mean, it's not like you're the only person who can't find an individual. They
Right.
can't either.
Right. I think it's an industry-wide issue.
It is, yeah. So what is and it's probably an unfair question, because I ask this question a lot to myself, is kind of like, what's the end game? Because it's going to take a while. And John, we'll go to you next, because I want to read one of the things that you had talked about relative to the employee deficit. But what's the end game here? Is it just patience waiting 4 or 5 years for that pipeline to refill itself, hopefully, or is there a fast track solution?
Well, we have reached out to trade schools, and in Dayton, I believe there are 4 technology schools. And some of it is hands-on carpenters, plumbers, electricians, those type of things. And some of it is also the computer programmers type of people. We've reached out to all of them. We've even reached out to some high schools and said, look, nothing wrong with being a blue collar guy that turns a wrench for a living, because they make a really good living.
Yeah.
To try and, I don't want to say steer them that way, but at least to give them the information they need to make a educated decision.
Yeah. I think we've done such a job over the past, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, whatever it happens to be, talking about the necessity of a college education.
Yeah.
But now you see, listen, I mean, it's great for some people if you want to go that route, but there's a good living to be made, an opportunity in those trades, and it's right in front of you. So it's almost like a re-education, right? Everything that you heard for years, well, there's also this little, avenue over here where you can live a good life.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. John, you talk about better marketing for the next generation and the next. Does the marketing entail what Vance is talking about there? Other thoughts as far as how to market to that next generation?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that we're on the same track. And I found when we developed, in fact, we're now on the advisory committee for Madison Area Technical College, or it's just Madison College now. So we serve and kind of review with them the curriculum, the syllabus for industrial maintenance, those type of things that they graduate every year. And I think that's been beneficial to us both, to have a hand on the tiller, so to speak, or also to make a case for, the job security that comes with this. I mean, there's been a lot of variation in different industries that have come and gone, but healthcare continues pretty strongly, and I think it will, as long as there's people that need care. And then when I went to some of the trade shows, I found I didn't just or not the job fairs. When I went there, in addition to interacting with the students, I walked up and down and talked to the other representatives from industry, and I found that I was behind the curve. They've been coming there for years, and they were also going to high schools and talking to the students. So we were kind of behind on that. We're catching up now, trying to work with our HR partners, but I think this is something that we'll need to do more. Take the wheel ourselves, and it really comes by find the people in your ranks that are successful, are happy with what they're doing, have been doing it a while, and that they're your best advocates. I can talk a good game, but you know, I often wear a necktie and you know, work at a desk. So but I've got people that have been, you know, with our organization for many years and will probably retire there. And part of the retirement system is, I mean, that's part of the benefit package. It's and you work inside. There's good food available readily. There's, you know, you're always part of a team. There's a lot of benefits to it that I think we just have to make a case for to try and get them in it, and making those partners and with both our school system, tech school system, and otherwise is the right direction.
Do you gentlemen have any idea or any sense for how that messaging is received by those younger generations? Because I'm not sure if you, John, it seems like you may interact with some because you're at the trade shows trying to tout the benefits, but and I don't know, Vance, if you are, but any idea how the message is received generationally? John, I guess I'll go to you.
I would just say it's very competitive, you know, because I do at when I have those opportunities, I talk about those benefits, discounts on things, a reasonable pay scale. Just like Vance, we're behind, we're below, but there's, you know, it's a clean environment, it's a team environment, the health benefits, healthcare, you know, insurance, all of those things, if you take them into account, I would say it's a competitive package. And I think as much as anything is enjoying what you do. You know, it's not, there's not many people in my ranks that like dread coming to work. You know, they know where they're going to be, they know who they work with, they kind of know where they're going, you know, they get scheduled breaks and I mean, those kind of things. The environment lends itself to be an appealing opportunity. I think if it's presented right. I took a course or two in marketing in my, you know, to earn my graduate degree, but that's not really my forte. I'm sure there's better people than I am at it. Maybe I need to recruit them.
Well, no, but I think you're definitely right relative to kind of changing the approach as to what the benefit is, right? I mean, you know, full-time work, roof over your head, schedules. Seems like, you know, and I think it's what you run into a lot, you know, the folks who are younger, especially at the trades level, they can make more money working, you know, for the union. So you maybe try to get them when they're that mid-career, maybe they got a wife and kids, maybe they're getting a little tired of going up and down the ladder all the time and being out in the elements. So, you know, a portion of that is timing, I would think.
I would agree. The audience that we're addressing to a large extent is focused on the dollar per hour.
Yeah.
And we're not competitive there. So
yeah.
I agree.
And that kind of runs into, I mean, do you feel that kind of that benefit package today, is it enough to sway folks into, you know, into healthcare or benefits? I remember the old days, not really that old, John. You know, you were talking about getting your paycheck every Friday. It's not that old, but like teachers, certain, you know, my wife is in education, so certain professions, their benefits were top of the notch and they beat everybody. And I think healthcare was one of them. It seems these days, even that is becoming less of a competitive advantage as things just even out. Do you find that is benefits less of a sale than it used to be, or a draw than it used to be? Less of a draw?
I would say in some instances, the value of it is less.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, you know, 60 or 70% of your insurance premium is paid by your employer, but the 20% plus deductible that you're paying for services has gone up to a large extent, and that makes that appear not as valuable to some of the people we'd like to draw to this career field.
Yeah. Multiple issues.
Great.
This concludes episode 1. Please return to the Healthcare Facilities Network in the near future to view episode 2. And as always, thank you for watching.